Imagine the scene. At a high-stakes Francophone summit in Paris, tensions escalate between DR Congo President Félix Tshisekedi and French President Emmanuel Macron. The heated exchange isn't just about words, it's about Europe's treatment of Africa, particularly France's role. Tshisekedi's decision to walk out, protesting Macron's failure to address the ongoing conflict in the Congo, sends shockwaves through the summit. He even boycotts key events, leaving many questioning whether France is on the verge of losing its influence over its former colonies, just like it did in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. What was supposed to be a diplomatic gathering now risks becoming a symbol of fractured relations. But you see, this clash goes far beyond political theatrics. It's rooted in the deep struggles of the Congo, a country rich in natural resources but crippled by conflict and exploitation. Rebels control cobalt mines, where child labor is rampant. These are the same minerals that fuel our modern tech, from smartphones to electric vehicles. Companies like Apple, Google, and Tesla have been accused of profiting from this exploitation. Meanwhile, thousands of UN soldiers stationed in the DRC for over 20 years have done little to bring lasting peace, and Tshisekedi has finally asked them to leave. Burning question we all need to ask if truly nothing is wrong in this continent. Why is it that despite its vast wealth, like massive wealth, the Congo remains one of the poorest and most unstable countries in the world? It's not just about minerals. It's about who controls them and who profits from them. Foreign powers back rebel groups, and the Congolese people are left to suffer. A UN report in 2024 highlighted thousands of violations against children in these conflict zones, yet the world remains largely silent.
As I speak, the busiest airspace in the continent of Africa is Eastern Congo. The continuation of slavery and suffering because European powers continue to exploit that place. And there is modern-day slavery in that part. The mine workers are modern-day slaves. They may receive wages, but that is just for purposes of keeping them alive, that they may continue to work the mines. And that is why you saw Congo also produced some spiritualists who wanted to protest against all these. Donna Beatrice, Kimpavita, Simon Kimbangu came out of that environment saying, this slavery, and you've enslaved us twice. You've enslaved us through religion. You've enslaved us physically. You've enslaved us through colonization.
Now let's take a step back. We often hear African leaders demanding respect on the world stage, but respect is not handed out freely. It's earned. Look at countries like Singapore, which developed without natural resources, or United Arab Emirates, which has managed its wealth for the benefit of its people. What's stopping other African nations from following suit? Why do leaders continue to beg for aid from former colonizers when they have the potential to be global superpowers? Take Nigeria, often hailed as one of the most resource-rich countries on earth. It should be thriving, yet corruption has left it in shambles. South Africa, once the jewel of the continent, is now facing economic decline. And then there's the DRC, with its endless conflicts and untapped potential, stuck in a cycle of violence and poverty. The same country Macron's failed to address. Macron's failure to address the Congo's plight wasn't just an oversight. It was a clear indication of where France's priorities lie, and it may have just cost France another ally in Africa. Tshisekedi's walkout isn't just a political statement. It's a call for a shift in how Africa is treated on the global stage. Just curious to ask, will France continue to cling to its outdated policies, or will it adapt to a new Africa, one that demands respect, autonomy, and justice? Imagine standing on the world stage, seeking justice for your country's suffering, only to be completely sidelined. That's exactly what happened to Félix Tshisekedi, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, at the Francophonie summit in Paris. He was there to push for international recognition of Rwanda's alleged interference in Congo's eastern conflict, a matter that has torn his nation apart. But to his surprise, French President Emmanuel Macron chose to brush off the issue entirely. This diplomatic snub has deeper implications. It's not just about Macron turning his back on Tshisekedi, it's about the larger shift in France's stance on Africa and the growing isolation of Congo in the international arena. At the 2023 Francophonie summit, Tshisekedi arrived with a clear goal: to rally international support for Congo in its ongoing conflict with Rwanda, which has been accused of backing the M23 rebels responsible for terrorizing Congo's eastern regions. The stakes were high for Tshisekedi, as the M23 group has destabilized the region for years, forcing millions of people to flee their homes.
The M23 are people of Tutsi origin who are Congolese. But they are now being told, no, you are not Congolese, you are Rwandese, and that is why you see the frequent accusations that the Rwandese government is supporting them, and the frequent denials by the Rwandese administration that they are not supporting them. The other conflict that has emerged in Congo is that Congo has become what one may say a rare ground for fighting groups from Uganda. The ADF, when they were expelled by the current NRM regime, went into the forests in Congo. You remember that even Joseph Kony at one time went to Central Africa through Congo. There is also evidence to suggest that there are Burundian fighters, rebels also in Congo in those thick forests. So it is a combination of factors, local factors, commercial reasons by illegal miners, foreign hands which want to ensure that Congo remains the way it is, local politicians who benefit from a disorganized and disorderly and conflict-ridden Congo. All these factors conjoined create what is essentially a state of confusion.
But when Macron took the podium, he barely mentioned the conflict. Instead, he focused on global issues like the Ukraine war and Lebanon's crisis. Tshisekedi was left in shock as Macron failed to even address Rwanda's alleged involvement in Congo's turmoil, let alone condemn it. This snub was especially devastating for Tshisekedi, who had hoped to use the summit as a platform to elevate Congo's plight on the international stage. One of the biggest questions looming from this diplomatic drama is, why did Macron choose to downplay Congo's conflict? Was it a deliberate move to protect French interests, or is it part of a larger geopolitical realignment in Africa? During his speech, Macron also hinted at rising hate speech in Francophone Africa, which many believe was a reference to the anti-Tutsi rhetoric in Congo.
This too must change in how we cooperate with France and Europe. Look at us differently, with respect, considering us as true partners and not always with a paternalistic view, thinking you always know what's best for us. If President Tshisekedi allows me, I would like to add a comment to the comment. Let me explain. Because the president spoke about France in response to the question. When a French journalist asks a question, it's not the French government, and that's fine. But we shouldn't mix everything up. No, no, no. It's not a stance of France.
Because there's no...
I was referring to the comments made by Le Drian, his official in France. The African-style compromise. That's Le Drian, not the journalist. That's correct, Mr. Compromise.
of this president's formula.
Under Tshisekedi's leadership, Congo has seen a resurgence of these sentiments, which critics argue has only fueled the violence in the region. Macron's words were a subtle but clear criticism of Tshisekedi's handling of internal ethnic tensions, which further added to the friction between the two leaders. Tshisekedi was quick to express his disappointment. However, his frustration wasn't just with Macron's speech, it was with the international community as a whole. For months, he has been trying to rally global condemnation of Rwanda's support for M23, but his efforts have largely fallen on deaf ears. This isn't the first time Macron has distanced himself from Congo's internal struggles. During his visit to Kinshasa in early 2023, Macron famously said that Congo's problems were largely self-inflicted due to poor governance, a comment that visibly angered Tshisekedi. This latest incident at the Francophonie summit only deepens the rift between Congo and its former colonial ruler, France. So, here's the big question. Is France abandoning Congo in favor of other African alliances? And if so, how will Tshisekedi navigate this new reality? Macron's reluctance to engage with the Congo-Rwanda conflict might signal a broader shift in French foreign policy. France has long been a major player in African politics, but recent years have seen a rise in anti-French sentiment across the continent, with countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and others expelling French troops and turning towards Russia for military and political alliances. Could Macron be recalibrating France's role in Africa to focus on more pressing global concerns, such as the Ukraine war or relations with North Africa? This shift leaves Tshisekedi in a difficult position. Without France's backing, he must now look elsewhere for international support. But with many African nations growing closer to Russia and China, Congo might find itself increasingly isolated. What does this mean for Congo's future alliances? Could Tshisekedi's failure to secure French support push him towards other global powers, like Russia or China? Tshisekedi's government has already been facing significant challenges domestically, with widespread corruption, insecurity, and a humanitarian crisis in the east. His failure to secure international condemnation of Rwanda at the Francophonie summit is a serious blow to his leadership, both at home and abroad. But Tshisekedi is not without options. He could double down on efforts to build alliances with neighboring African countries, or even seek partnerships with global powers like China and Russia, who have been increasingly involved in African affairs. However, aligning with these powers could come at a cost, particularly in terms of human rights and democratic governance, which are already under scrutiny in Congo. One pressing question that remains: can Tshisekedi still salvage his international reputation and bring peace to Congo's eastern regions, or has he reached a tipping point? This diplomatic snub is more than just a personal setback for Tshisekedi. It's emblematic of a larger trend across Africa. Countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and others are rethinking their relationships with former colonial powers like France. There's a new wave of African leaders, such as Burkina Faso's IbrahimTraoré, who are rejecting Western influence and turning towards alternative partnerships with Russia, China, and even Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia. The question is, will Congo follow this path, or will Tshisekedi continue to seek Western backing despite the recent diplomatic challenges? As the dust settles on the Francophonie summit, one thing is clear: Félix Tshisekedi is facing one of the most challenging moments of his presidency. With France pulling away and Rwanda continuing to back the M23 rebels, Tshisekedi's leadership is being tested like never before. The world is watching closely to see how Congo will navigate this increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. Will Tshisekedi be able to restore peace to his country, or will his diplomatic failures only deepen Congo's crisis? Stay with us as we continue to explore the intricate web of African politics, French-African relations, and the future of Congo in an ever-changing world.